10 things that destroy our potential. There's a version of you that exists somewhere in the future. And that version, they're crushing it. They've figured out what you're struggling with right now. They've built the life you keep saying you'll start building someday. But here's the uncomfortable truth nobody wants to talk about. Most people never become that version of themselves. Not because they lack talent, not because they didn't have opportunities, but because they unknowingly sabotage their own potential every single day. Scientists at Stanford recently analyzed why some people explode past their limitations while others with identical starting points stay stuck. What they found wasn't motivational poster material. It was uncomfortable, because the things destroying your potential, you're probably defending them right now. Let's start with something that feels productive but absolutely isn't. The first thing silently killing your potential is what researchers call busy work syndrome. You know that feeling when your day is packed, you're exhausted, but somehow, nothing meaningful actually got done? That's not laziness, that's strategic avoidance disguised as productivity. A 2019 study from the University of California found that people spend an average of 60% of their work time on low-value tasks that create the illusion of progress. Responding to every notification, reorganizing your workspace for the third time this week, making lists of lists. It feels like momentum, but it's actually a sophisticated form of procrastination. Here's why this matters more than you think. Your brain gets a dopamine hit from completing tasks, any tasks. When you check off 5 meaningless items, your reward system lights up the same way it would if you'd done something significant. Except now you're tired, you feel accomplished, and you've got a convenient excuse to avoid the one thing that would actually move the needle. The high-resistance, high-impact work that scares you a little. Think about yesterday. How much of what you did will matter a month from now? Be honest. But that's just the surface level. The second thing is even more insidious because it actually feels like self-improvement. Consuming without creating. Another podcast, another YouTube video about productivity, another book on success. You're learning constantly, right? Except research from the University of Scranton shows that 92% of consumed information never gets applied. It just sits there, creating what psychologists call knowledge obesity. You're overwhelmed but undernourished. Here's the trap: learning feels like progress. It feels safe. You can tell yourself you're preparing, you're not ready yet, you just need to understand one more framework. Meanwhile, someone half as informed as you is out there actually doing the thing, failing, adjusting, and getting somewhere real. The internet has created this illusion that you need to know everything before you start anything. But that's backwards. Action creates information. You don't think your way into a new life, you live your way into new thinking. I want you to consider something uncomfortable. What if all that content you're consuming isn't preparing you for action? What if it's replacing it? Which brings us to the third destroyer, and this one hits different because it sounds responsible. Waiting for perfect conditions, when the timing's right, when you have more money, when you're more experienced, when you feel ready. A Harvard Business School study tracked 15,000 aspiring entrepreneurs over 5 years. Want to know the difference between those who launched and those who didn't? The ones who succeeded didn't have better circumstances, they just stopped requiring perfect ones. Your brain is designed to protect you from risk, which means it's also designed to convince you that now isn't the time. There's always going to be a reason to wait, always a variable you can't control. The market conditions, the economy, your confidence level, other people's opinions. But here's what nobody tells you: conditions don't get better, you do. You get better by starting before you're ready and figuring it out as you go. Every single person you admire started in chaos with incomplete information. The difference is they accepted discomfort as the entry fee to growth. Think about the thing you've been putting off: the business idea, the creative project, the difficult conversation. What if the right time already passed and you're just waiting for an easier version that doesn't exist? Now, the fourth thing is particularly dangerous because society actively encourages it. Seeking everyone's approval. A Microsoft research study found that people spend an average of 4 hours per week managing their image and worrying about others' opinions. 4 hours. That's 208 hours a year you could spend building something real, sacrificed instead to the court of public opinion. Here's the brutal math: when you try to please everyone, you dilute yourself into something that excites no one. The most impactful people throughout history, they had armies of critics. If you're not catching heat from someone, you're probably not doing anything worth noticing. Your need for approval is inversely proportional to your potential, because the moment you commit to something meaningful, some people will misunderstand you, some will criticize you, Some will think you've changed. And if you're constantly editing yourself based on their reactions, you'll end up living a version of their life, not yours. Ask yourself this: who are you trying to impress, and would you trade your dreams to keep their approval? The fifth destroyer is subtle, which makes it lethal. Comparing your chapter 3 to everyone else's chapter 20. Social media has weaponized comparison. You see someone's highlight reel and measure it against your behind-the-scenes footage. Research from the University of Pennsylvania found that limiting social media use to 30 minutes per day led to significant reductions in anxiety and depression. Not because social media is inherently bad, but because constant comparison is psychological poison. Here's what happens: you see someone crushing it in an area you're struggling with, and instead of inspiration, you feel inadequacy. That inadequacy becomes paralysis. Paralysis becomes inaction. Inaction becomes resentment. And resentment, that's where potential goes to die. But there's a deeper layer here. When you're obsessed with how you measure up, you stop paying attention to your actual progress. You miss the small wins, you discount the growth. You can't see how far you've come because you're too busy staring at how far someone else has gone. What if the only person you needed to be better than is who you were yesterday? Number 6 is going to make some people defensive, but it needs to be said. Staying in comfort at all costs. MIT researchers found that the brain's neuroplasticity, its ability to form new connections and capabilities, is directly linked to novel, challenging experiences. Translation: if you're not regularly uncomfortable, you're not growing, you're just getting really good at things that no longer challenge you. Comfort is seductive. It feels like you've arrived, but comfort is also where potential stagnates. Every skill you have now was once impossibly hard. You couldn't talk, then you learned. Couldn't read, then you learned. Couldn't drive, use a computer, do your job. All of it was uncomfortable before it became normal. The version of you that's capable of more only emerges when you're willing to suck at something new. When you're willing to feel awkward, make mistakes, and be a beginner again. But most people would rather feel capable in a small life than clumsy in pursuit of a bigger one. Where in your life have you chosen comfort over growth, and what's it costing you? The seventh thing is something you probably don't even realize you're doing. Living in reaction mode instead of creation mode. A University of Chicago study found that the average person spends 4.7 hours per day responding to other people's agendas, emails, messages, requests, interruptions. You wake up with plans, but by noon you're just putting out fires and answering demands. Here's the shift that changes everything. Creators design their day, reactors survive their day. If the first thing you do is check your phone, you've already surrendered control. You're now operating in response to what everyone else needs from you. The most successful people protect their creative hours like their life depends on it, because their life's work does depend on it. They create before they consume. They decide what matters before the world tells them what's urgent. What would change if the first 2 hours of your day belonged only to your most important work? Number 8 feels contradictory, but stay with me. Refusing to quit the wrong things. We're taught that quitters never win, that persistence is everything. But here's what the research actually shows: strategic quitting is one of the strongest predictors of long-term success. A study in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that people who could disengage from unattainable goals experienced better well-being and achieved more meaningful objectives. Not everything deserves your persistence. Some projects are dead ends, some relationships are draining you, some strategies stopped working years ago but you're still running them on autopilot. The sunk cost fallacy keeps you investing in the past instead of pivoting toward the future. Your time and energy are finite. Every hour you spend on something that isn't working is an hour stolen from something that could. Winners quit the wrong races so they can win the right ones. What are you still doing just because you've already invested so much time in it? The ninth destroyer is wrapped in good intentions. Perfectionism disguised as standards. Brené Brown's research found that perfectionism is not the same as striving for excellence. Perfectionism is a defense mechanism, a shield against judgment and shame. It says, if I make this perfect, I can't be criticized. But perfect is a moving target that keeps you from ever shipping, ever finishing, ever being seen. There's a difference between excellence and perfectionism. Excellence says, I want this to be great. Perfectionism says, this has to be flawless or I'm worthless. One is motivating, the other is paralyzing. Every masterpiece you've ever admired was released imperfect. Every business that changed the world launched with bugs. Every book that moved you had sentences the author wished they could rewrite. They did it anyway. They valued impact over image. What would you create if you didn't need it to be perfect? What would you share if you weren't terrified of judgment? And finally, the 10th thing destroying your potential is the most overlooked. Not protecting your energy like it's the most valuable resource you have. Because it is. A Stanford study found that willpower and decision-making ability deplete throughout the day like a battery. By evening, you're running on fumes, which is why your best intentions collapse into Netflix and junk food. But here's the key: some things charge you, others drain you. Some people add energy, others subtract it. Some environments inspire you, others depress you, and most people never audit what's quietly siphoning their life force. You can't do everything, you can't be everywhere, you can't help everyone. And trying to is how you end up too depleted to do the things only you can do. The most successful people are ruthless about what they allow into their space, not because they're selfish, but because they understand that you can't pour from an empty cup. What would you have to say no to in order to say yes to your potential? Look, here's the reality: every single one of these 10 things feels justified in the moment. They feel reasonable, responsible, even necessary. That's exactly why they're so dangerous. Your potential isn't destroyed by one catastrophic decision. It's eroded by 1,000 tiny ones that seem insignificant at the time. Checking your phone first thing in the morning, saying yes when you mean no, waiting for perfect, comparing, consuming, avoiding discomfort. But the flip side, the same is true for building a life that actually reflects what you're capable of. It's not one grand gesture, it's daily decisions that most people aren't willing to make. You already know which of these 10 things is holding you back the most. You felt it when I mentioned it. The question now isn't what's stopping you, the question is what are you going to do about it? Because that future version of you, the one who figured it all out, they're not smarter than you, they're not luckier. They just stopped defending the habits that were keeping them small. Your potential is still there. It's just waiting for you to stop sabotaging it. Thank you for watching this video, and remember, subscribing to this channel would really mean a lot to me, so thank you for subscribing. See you in the next one.